Sakurai is a gloomy loner who couldn't bag any girls with his hideous face. However, everything changes when his childhood friend moves to his school with her massive cannons and wants to get freaky with him. This story begins in Sakurai's second year of college, and as usual, the loner walks to class alone while the rest of the students gist and bond. However, all of a sudden, a Pixar mom with massive milkies calls his name, and while staring at her balloons, Sakurai remembers that she's Hana, his childhood friend, whom he hasn't seen in ages. The fact that he remembers her makes Hana happy, so she excitedly tells him that she just enrolled in the school, which now makes her his junior. As they walk to class together, Hana starts asking a bunch of stupid questions, so Sakurai hurries to get the heck away from her so he can goon in peace. However, throughout that week in school, Hana keeps a close eye on Sakurai's daily routine, and that's when she notices that the idiot is always alone, doing some cringy things. At that moment, she decides that she wants to help him get a social life so he doesn't die a cold virgin. The next day after school, as Sakurai walks home, Hana suddenly crashes into him, demanding they hang out, but he yells that he isn't interested in girls who look like boys. Still, the plotful midget does not let him be and continues to pester like an annoying mosquito. However, when she clocks that the dude is committed to remaining a hopeless loner, she roasts him a little before screaming to the general public that he is treating her like trash. Surprised by that statement, Sakurai yells at her to stop spouting nonsense, but when he notices everyone staring at him like he is Epstein, he immediately agrees to let Hana tag along to save himself the embarrassment. A few minutes later, they arrive at the mall, where Hana learns that Sakurai's entire plan for the day was to watch a movie alone at the cinema, so she makes fun of him for watching a movie at the cinema all by himself. Sakurai argues that a person should be free to enjoy their alone time however they choose, but Hana calls him the final boss of loneliness, which strikes a nerve. After picking a movie to watch, Sakurai offers to cover her ticket just in case she is too broke, and Hana happily agrees. However, when Hana learns that he paid with points instead of cash, she calls him a useless brokey with no change, hurting Sakurai's ego. Hours later, when they're done watching the movie, Hana asks Sakurai to escort her to an electronics store to buy an earbud, and he agrees. Once inside the store, Hana calls him over to the massage chair section, where she asks him to take a seat and enjoy a massage with her. He agrees, and as he sits, he cranks up the intensity of the massage chair, which immediately causes Hana to feel ticklish in her special spot. As the vibration makes her wooblies do the Alonzo dance, Sakurai tries to keep it in his pants, but when Hana can't control the pressure in her fun flaps, she screams out happy noises, embarrassing both of them. After they leave the massage section, Sakurai, pissed at the embarrassment, suggests they leave the store immediately. However, when he turns, he notices Hana standing on another massager and wiggling her melons, so he covers his virgin eyes from the diddling temptation. Shortly afterward, they head to the VR section where Hana plays a shooting game, and when it gets too intense, she accidentally smacks Sakurai in the face with a controller. When it's Sakurai's turn, he decides to play an ocean exploration game that won't freak him out, but while at it, Hana gets close and starts making fun of his stone-cold face. Suddenly, Sakurai gets attacked by a shark, and as he freaks out, he accidentally grabs onto Hana's Jigglypuff, thinking it's some kind of jellyfish, causing her to feel all kinds of emotions. After the exciting gaming experience, Sakurai takes off the headset, thrilled at how much fun he had, especially the unexpected soft touch. However, Hana decides not to tell him what really happened. Next, they play a baseball game where Hana will not stop teasing and laughing at Sakurai for being totally worthless at sports. However, when Hana tries to play the game, she puts everything into the swing but only ends up twisting her spinal cord. Later, they settle at a roadside food spot where Sakurai insists Hana go home to take care of her waist injury, but Hana refuses, saying she is fine. This leads to them arguing, but Sakurai suddenly notices that Hana has ravaged the food like a useless glutton. When he yells at her for eating like a sumo wrestler on coke, the ugly sales guy behind the counter tells Sakurai to chill and to stop yelling at his babe, but Sakurai immediately clarifies that the consuming midget is not his babe. The following morning, while Sakurai heads to school, Hana catches up to him and suggests that they hang out again, but the horseface refuses, explaining that he intends to spend the day alone. Still, Hana does not take no for an answer and insists that he teach her how to swing the baseball bat. However, seeing that Hana is genuinely having fun just by being around him excites Sakurai, as this is the first time anyone has ever made a real effort to spend time with him. Several days later, Sakurai is having a chilled day at his place of work when suddenly Hana spots him from outside and immediately barges in, excited to see him. She explains that she had no idea he works so close to the campus, and that she was just on her way back from a friend's place when she got hungry and figured she'd grab a bite. Annoyed by her presence, he yells at her to leave, but Hana flatly refuses, insisting that she is starving and needs to eat. When she demands to know why he doesn't want her there, he explains that her annoying presence is infesting the vibe of the place. But Hana fires back, calling him an ugly monster, before walking up to the counter to meet his boss, Asai. After she introduces herself as a friend of Sakurai, Asai immediately assumes Hana must be some jailbait in junior school, but when he spots the stepmom cannons she is packing, he realizes she is just another MILF with stunted growth, so he apologizes for his terrible assessment and then asks Hana to have a seat. When Sakurai approaches to take her order, Hana demands that he treat her with the respect a customer deserves, but he yells at her to shut her trap and beat it if she isn't cool with his treatment. Hana ignores his ranting and instead tells him that he needs to take his job seriously, no matter the customer. But Sakurai complains that if he does take it seriously, she will just take advantage of the opportunity to make fun of him. After watching them argue like an old couple, the boss decides to intervene and orders Sakurai to give Hana princess treatment, since she is also a customer. Upon hearing this, Hana gets excited and immediately orders Sakurai to bring her a glass of water, and with little choice, he does as he is told. However, as he places the water on the table and tries to be as polite as he can, Hana immediately has a spit take because acting all gentle only makes Sakurai's face look uglier than usual. When Hana couldn't control her laughter, Sakurai, pissed off, tosses her out of the shop like a discarded doll. The following morning, Sakurai heads to school, drained after playing video games all night, but along the way, he suddenly spots a stray cat staring at him like he is an animal offender. At the same time, Hana, happily trailing behind him, suddenly sees Sakurai acting funny with the stray, which catches her interest. When she approaches and asks what the heck he is doing, he explains that all he wants is to pet the cat, but the cat just keeps clawing at his face. Hana then tells him it must be because the kitty is freaked out by his horror-looking face, and as she gets closer, the cat instantly lets her pet it. Sakurai is shocked by this, but Hana explains that the only hope he has right now is face surgery. Suddenly, a biker speeds down the street, and the cat immediately chases after the biker. With the cat gone, Sakurai couldn't hide his sadness as he explains that all he has ever wanted in this life was to pet a cat. Seeing how much he desperately needs to pet something, Hana decides to help, so she runs after the cat to catch it, but he tells her to stop and immediately chases after her. Rounding a corner, Hana spots the cat in the bushes, so without thinking, she dives in, hoping to catch it but ends up catching the wind. After getting herself stuck in the bush, she hears Sakurai calling out to her and immediately warns him not to get anywhere close. However, Sakurai is already nearby, and as he rounds the corner, he sees Hana stuck in the bushes with her fat butterfly exposed. In a moment of reflex, the idiot spanks her jiat and immediately apologizes for losing control of his hand. Even though Hana is freaked out by this, she tries to control herself and then begs Sakurai to help pull her out from behind. He agrees, and as he grabs onto her, his rocket launcher is about to go off, but two cougars walking down the street spot the sus scene unfold and immediately run off shouting. A few minutes later, after Sakurai manages to pull Hana out of the bush, she thanks him, but Sakurai, embarrassed, can't look her in the face after the freakiness that just happened. Much later, at the school cafeteria, Sakurai is getting lunch from the counter when suddenly Hana meets him and wants to talk, but Sakurai, still shy about the earlier incident, couldn't stand staring at her face. Hana notices he is trying to ignore her, so she teases him, saying he is embarrassed because he is eating alone, but to prove her wrong, he claims he has homies who he regularly has lunch with. Upon hearing that the Rizless goat has friends, Hana almost loses her mind, so she decides to stick around to see his so-called friends. However, a few minutes in, Hana notices Sakurai is eating alone, so she starts bombarding him with messages, roasting him for not just looking like an alien from Mars, but for also lying about having friends. Later that evening, Sakurai is at his place of work, the only place where he enjoys some peace and quiet. The place is like an oasis to him, as he loves the sound of slow jazz playing in the background and the aroma of brewing coffee, but all this sweetness turns sour the instant Hana storms in to ruin his mood again. He yells at her to please leave him the heck alone, but Hana grabs his hand, pressing it against her marshmallows, and then begs him to help her with her essay. She reminds him how good he was back then at writing essays, but Sakurai bluntly refuses, saying he is working. As Hana continues to beg him, Asai steps in and tells Sakurai never to lose the opportunity to help out a junior. The old geezer assures Sakurai that it's fine if they work on the essay together at the cafeteria since they will be closing soon, and with that, Sakurai reluctantly agrees to help. While they work on it, Asai brings them sandwich, which excites Hana, but Sakurai immediately takes the sandwich away and tells her to finish her essay first. After Sakurai helps fix her essay, Hana asks if she can swing by his place, but he straight up refuses, saying he doesn't want her bad vibes all up in his crib. Trying to convince him, Hana promises she can help cook his meal, but Sakurai reminds her that her cooking tastes worse than food found in a dumpster. When Hana continues to insist, even promising she can spend the night so they can play games together, he yells at her to stop. When Hana asks why he is angry, he explains that it's not simple for a girl with such weapons of mass distraction to sleep in a guy's room. However, Hana reads it as him not wanting her in his crib, and this leads to Sakurai hulking out in frustration. Several days later, at Sakurai's place of work, a blue-haired baddie named Ame, the boss's daughter, is checking out Sakurai's toned body and eyeing his bad boy Riz. She also notices how dedicated he is to his work and how comfortable he is attending to customers, including the female ones, which tickles her fancy. However, while she is gushing over the dreamboat, Hana unexpectedly shows up with her upbeat personality and immediately starts getting all chatty with Sakurai and his boss, which confuses Ame. Ame wonders who the fun-sized mommy might be and how she is able to be so casual with the guys, so she silently approaches Sakurai to ask about Hana. Sakurai explains that Hana is his junior in college, which surprises Ame that the brat-looking girl is in college. Just watching how well Hana and Sakurai are getting along makes Ame jealous, but just then, her dad instructs her to give the customer a glass of water. As she does, she takes advantage of the opportunity to get to know more about Hana by introducing herself, and Hana does the same. However, seeing Hana up close makes Ame even more jealous, as she can now see that Hana is not just an absolute cutie, but also a small engine with giant wheels. While the girls chat, trying to get to know each other more, Sakurai observes that the water on Hana's table is getting pretty low, so as a good waiter, he decides to get more for her. However, while returning with the jug of chilled water, Hana suddenly bumps into him, and the water splashes all over them. This leads to an intense argument between them, as usual, and as they curse each other out, Ame and her father watch, amused by the Comedy Central unfolding before their eyes. The following day, Hana checks on Sakurai at his place of work, but she learns that he has taken the day off because he is suffering from a cold after the water-drenching incident from the day before. Meanwhile, in his cramped apartment, Sakurai is bedridden and debating whether he should go to the hospital, get some meds, or find something to eat, but he can't do any of it because he is completely drained and can't even move. Suddenly, he hears his doorbell ring, and as he struggles to open the door, he sees none other than Hana, who immediately starts yapping non-stop, but Sakurai collapses from exhaustion. After Hana manages to get him back to the bed, she notices that he is in pretty bad shape and then decides to make lunch for him. However, when she opens the fridge, she sees that the sick broke goat has absolutely nothing in there, so she goes shopping for some ingredients and then takes the opportunity to get some meds for him as well. A few minutes later, Hana is done preparing the rice, and as Sakurai takes a few scoops, she is delighted that her cooking doesn't taste like sewer juice. After Sakurai is done eating, he starts to feel all warm and sweaty, so Hana suddenly shows up with a bowl of water to clean off his sweat and demands that he strip. Sakurai refuses, but Hana forcefully yanks his shirt away and starts cleaning his body. She makes use of her giant pair of tennis balls to scrub his back, and Sakurai immediately feels a massive plot developing on his plot stick. Later that night, after Hana gives Sakurai the meds so he can feel better, Sakurai glances at the wall clock and, realizing it's late, tells Hana to head home, assuring her that he will be fine. But Hana, stubborn as always, refuses, insisting that she will only leave after he has fallen asleep. Realizing arguing with her is pointless, he thanks her for taking care of him and agrees for her to stay a little longer while he rests. The next morning, Sakurai recovers from the cold, and as he heads to school, he bumps into Ame, who asks about his health. He tells her that he is fine now, and then thanks her for covering his shift the day before. But Ame tells him that if he really wants to thank her, then he should bring Hana over to the cafeteria so they can celebrate his recovery together. Sakurai reluctantly agrees, so later that afternoon, they all meet at the cafeteria to celebrate. As always, Hana uses every opportunity she gets to annoy Sakurai, and just watching them argue is more interesting to Ame and her old man than any show on Netflix. Shortly afterward, Hana excuses herself to the bathroom, and Sakurai takes advantage of the opportunity to ask Uncle Ted here if he was the one who gave Hana the address to his place. When Asai confirms he was, Sakurai tells him to stop filling his old fossil brain with ideas that he and Hana can ever be in a romantic relationship. He explains that all he wants is to live in peace, and having Hana as a bae is clearly the opposite of peace. Asai and Ami interrupt, saying he is just making excuses for his gloomy life, but Sakurai angrily tells them to shut their beer-smelling mouths. He explains that even though Hana might be his junior and childhood friend, she is still a girl with a righteous pair of melons, and having her visit his crib often will only cause trouble for him since he lives close to the campus. After listening to Sakurai yap, Ami and her old man finally understand that he makes sense, and they have been foolish for complicating things. Just then, Hana returns from the toilet, and they immediately change the topic. However, while watching them chat casually, Hana observes that Sakurai always refers to Ami by her first name, which makes her jealous. The following day at school, Sakurai waits for Hana since she asked to see him privately. Once Hana arrives, she pulls out a coin tied to a rope and starts swinging it, trying to hypnotize him. Sakurai decides to play along since she did take care of him when he was sick, and once Hana feels her hypnotism is working, she gets excited and starts glazing herself. She then asks him to call her by her first name, and Sakurai, playing along, obeys without arguing. Hearing Sakurai call her by her first name for the first time makes Hana blush hard, so she tells him to repeat it a couple hundred times. Now that she is fully convinced that Sakurai is under her hypnotism spell, Hana decides to get freaky and says she needs his teabag in her mouth, but Sakurai chops her on the head to show he isn't ready to simp yet. This makes Hana realize that the dude has been faking being hypnotized all this while, and Sakurai doesn't deny it. When he demands to know what exactly her motive was for trying to hypnotize him, Hana admits that she did it because she is jealous that he always calls Ami by her first name. Seeing how this makes her upset, Sakurai apologizes and then explains that he is uncomfortable calling girls by their first name, and the only reason he calls Ame by her first name is because she forced him to. Hearing him apologize makes Hana happy, so she tells him not to sweat it and then teases him for being shy around girls. Several weeks later, Golden Week arrives when most businesses shut down, so Asai informs Sakurai that since he and Ami will be taking a family trip, he'll have the entire week off. Ame then suggests that Sakurai take advantage of the public holiday to touch some grass, but Sakurai, being a half-assed loner, decides to hole himself up in his goon cave, playing video games for 3 days straight. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and when he opens the door, he sees an overexcited Hana with her wiggly noms, who suggests that they hang out together since he is free. Sakurai immediately declines her offer, but when Hana pulls out her phone and suggests they play a fun animal game that involves hanging out with other gamers, the nerdy loser instantly agrees. With that, they head to a gaming convention where Hana immediately earns a reward for playing the game. However, when she tries to show Sakurai her win, she realizes the dude is squinting his eyes to see, which makes him look more like a gorilla. When she asks why he looks like an eyesore, Sakurai complains that his eyes hurt because of too much gaming, so Hana suggests they get a pair of glasses for him. A few minutes later, Sakurai and Hana walk into a store that sells glasses, and as they look around, they find none other than Ame there, who is also out shopping for nerdy glasses. After Hana explains that they are searching for glasses for Sakurai, Ame offers to help them out and then hands Sakurai a glass to test out. Once Sakurai puts the glass on, the girls are immediately stunned at how well it fits his face. This motivates Sakurai to try out more glasses, and Hana compliments how well the glasses hide his criminal face, making him look more like a normal person. After trying out a couple of glasses, Ami decides to play devil's advocate by suggesting Sakurai try on some clown-looking glasses that make him look like a corporate idiot. His funny appearance makes Ame and Hana laugh hard, but when Hana takes the joke too far, saying she wants to take a pic for the gram, Sakurai yells at her to knock it off. Afterwards, Hana decides to get glasses of her own, and while checking the shelves, she sees one with a red frame that catches her interest. When she puts it on, Ame tells Sakurai to take a look at her, and as he does, he loses a few brain cells, seeing how cute Hana looks. However, trying to be a tough guy, he tells Hana that the glass make her look dumb, and this immediately makes them start roasting each other violently. A few hours later, after they leave the glasses store, they board a train where they continue gaming, and at the same time argue about what happened earlier at the store. When the train arrives at the next station, a few other passengers board, and this makes Sakurai quite uncomfortable, but Hana is still completely immersed in playing her game. In the next station, more people board, and as the train gets more crowded, Sakurai complains about it, but Hana explains that it's because of the soccer match taking place at the nearest station. Suddenly, a giant mascot boards the train, and Sakurai is forced to move uncomfortably closer to Hana, causing his chest to press against her fun bags. Sakurai immediately tries to adjust, but when the swole dude wouldn't budge, he tries to control the excessive blood rushing into his Slim Jim by thinking about an old dude fart engine. However, the more he tries not to build plot by rubbing against Hana's meat shield, the more difficult it gets, making him lose his mind. A few minutes later, when the train arrives at the next station where they are supposed to alight, Hana drops off the train. But since Sakurai is already out cold on his feet, the train doors close and take him past the station. A few hours later, Sakurai finally regains consciousness, but finds himself in a deserted station and wonders where the heck he is. However, when he checks his phone, he notices that he had missed several calls from Hana. The next day, at the cafeteria, Sakurai, feeling like a total jerk, shares all that happened on the train with Asai and Ami and how he completely blacked out to stop himself from busting a fat one. After hearing him out, Asai is disappointed knowing that Sakurai is far too useless to crack any chick, so he advises him to step up his game. Ame, on the other hand, finds it amusing, but then advises him to make it up to Hana, since she was the one who invited him out and was left stranded. Days later, Sakurai decides to act on Ame's advice, so he meets up with Hana and suggests they hang out the following weekend, which catches her off guard but also causes her heart to race with excitement. However, when the weekend arrives, the anime gods pull a fast one and it rains heavily. Sakurai then decides to call Hana to cancel the date, but suddenly, his doorbell rings, and when he opens the door, he sees Hana standing on his porch, all drenched from head to toe. She explains that she figured it would rain later, so she decided to pull up so they could play games at his crib, but after she did a little shopping, it started raining. Hana asks if she can take a shower and change clothes, and once Sakurai agrees, she teases him, asking if he would like to take a shower with her, but he yells at her to stop playing around. After her shower, Hana shows up wearing one of Sakurai's shirts, and with Sakurai's help, they make potato porridge. Once they are done with the food, they dive right into gaming, and after playing, they eat together. Hours later, when it starts to get dark, Sakurai escorts Hana to the train station, and along the way, they chat about the game they played and how much fun they had. When Sakurai suggests they play again sometime the following week, Hana blushes hard and then smiles. Upon arriving at the train station, Hana advises Sakurai not to forget to put the potato porridge in the fridge, and Sakurai nods. She bids him goodnight, but as she turns to leave, she searches her back pocket and realizes she forgot her train pass at his place, so they are forced to head back to Sakurai's crib to get it. The following week, summer arrives, and as Sakurai heads to school, Hana excitedly runs up to meet him, and then asks if she can pull up to his crib after school. When Sakurai asks why, Hana explains that she is worried he will finish the game they both started without her, but Sakurai assures her he won't, claiming that he doesn't even like playing the game anyway, and this leads to them arguing. In a dream, Sakurai finds himself up a skyscraper, teetering on a ledge while trying to save a cat. However, as Sakurai gets close and tries to carry the kitty, the Garfield decides to mess him up by using him as a trampoline, which causes him to trip and fall. As Sakurai jerks awake from the nightmare, he is relieved that it's just a dream, but then he realizes that he is in class and notices that Hana is the only one staring at him. Coincidentally, the teacher is lecturing about dream interpretation and its meanings, and according to her, when a person falls from a great height, it means they are suffering from anxiety. Hana figures Sakurai must have dreamt about falling from a great height due to how scared he was when he suddenly woke up. So after the lecture that day, she teases him non-stop about being anxious that his dong will be donated to the museum for lack of usage, but Sakurai refuses to engage in her silly conversation. Still, Hana refuses to stop, and as they climb down the stairs, she trips and almost falls, but Sakurai catches her just in time like a ragged doll. Seeing this as the perfect opportunity for revenge, Sakurai teases her that people who trip down the stairs develop a fear of stairs, which can mess up their brains for the rest of their lives, and the horrifying way he says, it almost drives Hana nuts. During lunch break, Sakurai runs into his hot friend Sakaki, who is being asked out by two ugly girls, but Sakaki uses Sakurai's presence as an opportunity to ditch them ugly hoes. While having drinks at the cafeteria, Sakaki talks about the fun he had during the summer break while on vacation, and then asks Sakurai how he spent his summer break. The question instantly makes Sakurai think about Hana and all the times they've spent together in the past weeks, and this makes him realize that he has practically been spending all his time with her. However, not wanting to sound like a simp, he lies to his friend that he spent the summer going to classes, playing games, and binging on Netflix. Angered by his words, Sakaki loses it and yells at him for wasting his youth on stupid things. He angrily tells Sakurai that if he doesn't get a girlfriend like now, he is doomed to die an 80-year-old virgin. While Sakaki is crashing out at Sakurai, Hana walks in on them and, upon learning that the hot Chad is Sakurai's friend, she freaks out since she had always assumed Sakurai was a friendless dweeb. After introducing herself to Sakaki as the Gloomlord's friend, Hana turns to Sakurai and asks if they can hang out later that day. But the question leads to an argument, since Sakurai has no intention of hanging out with the shorty. However, just watching them argue like bitter exes makes Sakaki realize there is a hidden love connection that needs nurturing between the two. So, after Hana leaves for her next class, Sakaki immediately teases Sakurai for finally bagging himself a potential girlfriend and then offers to help him finalize everything. Later that day in the school lounge, while Sakurai and Hana are busy playing games, Sakaki meets up with them and wants to know more about their weird relationship. When he asks how long they've known each other, Sakurai and Hana are too engrossed in the game to answer, so Sakaki cranks up the intensity of the question by asking if they've smashed. The question immediately catches their attention, and Sakurai finds it offensive. He immediately denies doing anything freaky with Hana, but Hana reads it as him saying his pipe is too golden for her, which leads to them arguing, and just watching them roast each other amuses Sakaki. Sick of the argument, Sakurai leaves to get ice cream, and Hana immediately follows after him. Seeing their reactions, Sakaki is relieved because it's just as he expected, but just then, Ame walks up to his table and, after introducing herself as a friend of Hana and Sakurai, she warns Sakaki to stop teasing them. She explains that the way Sakaki is going with all this might end up nipping Sakurai and Hana's love in the bud, so he must watch them from a distance and drop all unnecessary prying, but Sakaki tells her to repeat herself because she is making him all bricked up. This pisses off Ame, so she yells, warning him to quit meddling or she will cut off his carrot from its dangling region, scaring the life out of the pretty boy. Meanwhile, Sakurai and Hana are out in the gardens, where Hana tries to force Sakurai to have a taste of her favorite minty ice cream, but Sakurai refuses, saying it tastes like toothpaste. Hana asks him to repeat what he just said, and when Sakurai does, she angrily yells at him for mocking her favorite ice cream. She then goes into an uncontrollable dramatic ranting about how she hates people who mock snacks they haven't even tasted. She calls those kinds of people jerks and idiots, and then says she cringes at their sheer arrogance. After she is done rage ranting, she concludes her dramatic speech with an iconic pose, and everyone in the park starts applauding her like she just exposed the secret to the Da Vinci Code. Now that she has released all her pent-up frustration, she calmly advises Sakurai that he is free to hate whatever he wants, but he should never diss what someone else likes. Moved by her words, Sakurai then explains that since he was a boy, he has always hated mint because of the cool sensation, but Hana tells him that the cool sensation is the best part of anything minty. Still, Sakurai says he can't stand it since his taste buds are cooked, and then admits he has never even tasted her minty-flavored ice cream before. Upon hearing this, Hana hulks out and immediately moves to punch his stupid face for criticizing her ice cream without even tasting it, but Sakurai restrains her and then apologizes. Hana eventually calms down after realizing that his dislike for the ice cream stems from childhood trauma, and then she gives him one to try out. However, Sakurai figures that eating the ice cream will mean he has indirectly locked lips with Hana, but he knows that refusing to eat it will only end in another argument, so he takes it. When Hana asks how it tastes, Sakurai admits it's nice, so Hana takes a bite of her own, but freezes the moment she also realizes she just indirectly kissed Sakurai. The following week, Sakurai almost dies when he sees Hana in his workplace putting on the work uniform. But before he can say a word, Asai explains that Hana will be working part-time at the cafeteria for the summer break. When Sakurai tries to protest against Hana working there, Hana tells him not to be a hater, and then explains that all she wants is to make some greens before the summer break ends. Still, Sakurai isn't cool with her being there, so Asai tells him to suck it up like a man, and then orders him to teach Hana all she needs to know about waiting tables. With little to no choice, Sakurai reluctantly obeys, and while teaching Hana how to properly serve tables and take orders, Hana uses the opportunity to frustrate the life out of him. After business hours that day, Hana asks Sakurai where he plans on going for the summer break, but the shut-in moron tells her that his summer plans include two things: playing video games and gooning OnlyFans. Shocked to hear this, Hana scolds him for wasting his summer break and then suggests they visit the beach. Before Sakurai can decline, she says it's a done deal and then reminds him that it's been ages since he last did any swimming. While this conversation is ongoing, the pretty boy walks in, and having overheard about the beach, he smiles mischievously and then offers to cover the transportation and lodging. The following week, they all arrive at the beach, but the moment Ami sets eyes on Hana's inflated balloons, she is traumatized, knowing the oranges on her chest can never match up to Hana's weapons. Meanwhile, Sakurai is having the time of his life swimming, but Ami pulls him to the side, and after scolding him, she reminds him that the sole purpose for coming to the beach is not to play Aquaman, but to try and get laid. She also advises him not to be alone, but to always be around Hana so some thirsty dude doesn't see her huge racks and hit on her. Then, to riz Hana up, Ami suggests Sakurai compliment Hana's swimsuit, but the smooth-brained dummy compliments Ami's bust instead, so Ami angrily slaps him and tells him not to lose focus. With that, Sakurai approaches Hana, but when he compliments the parachute on her chest, Hana pushes him the ground out of embarrassment. Much later, Sakaki arrives with a watermelon and a bat and suggests they play a watermelon piñata game, which everyone excitedly agrees to. Sakurai starts off the game with his eyes blindfolded, and Hana volunteers to be his guide, but instead of directing him to where the watermelon is, she makes fun of him. When Sakurai can't take her naughty remarks anymore, he tries to stop Hana but trips, only to land on top of her with his hand cupping her milk packs. Thinking it's a jellyfish, the cultured freak continues to squeeze as hard as he can, causing Hana's floodgates to turn Niagara Falls. Later that evening, Sakaki takes everyone to his family's summer condo where they will be staying for the vacation, and entering inside, everyone is shocked, senseless, seeing how exquisite the place is. After having dinner that night, Sakaki guides them into the woods, where he reveals that the icing on the cake for the vacation will be a test of courage, but Sakurai immediately signs out, saying he isn't interested. When Sakaki asks why, Sakurai admits that he is nothing but a scared little boy at heart who is afraid of horror movies and games. Upon hearing this, Hana decides to take advantage of his weakness, so she immediately grabs his phone and threatens to expose his browser history to everyone. Sakurai tries to stop her, but Hana takes off running with the phone deeper into the woods, forcing Sakurai to chase after her. Now alone, Ami asks Sakaki if the way everything is right now has always been his plan, and Sakaki admits that he initially thought the test of courage would make Sakurai and Hana bond. While searching for Sakurai and Hana, Sakaki tells Ame that even though she had initially warned him not to meddle in Sakurai and Hana's situationship, he figured that instead of just doing nothing, he might as well set the right conditions. When Ame asks why he is so interested in Sakurai's love life, Sakaki explains that even though Sakurai looks like Dracula suffering a midlife crisis, he is actually a nice G. Sakaki says his wish for Sakurai has always been for him to really enjoy college life instead of wasting his swimmers. After walking quite a distance, Sakaki and Ame finally find Sakurai and Hana, but Sakurai is deeply shaken with fear like a sissy after running through the dark woods. Seeing how terrified Sakurai is, Pretty Boy decides to call off the game, and upon returning to the crib, Hana decides to play video games, but Sakurai is pretty much wasted after all he went through. When Hana gets bored of playing games alone, she switches off the console and then moves closer to Sakurai, while he sleeps to take a funny picture of his sleepy face. However, as she pulls out her phone, Sakurai, still deep in sleep, pulls her onto the couch and buries his face in her sweaty dunkers. Hana tries to get the idiot's face off her, but when she sees that he is out cold, she realizes he must be a sleep hugger, so she lets him be. The next day, while in the bathroom, Sakurai, totally clueless about last night's incident, comments on how peaceful his sleep was, but Hana advises him to invest in one of those body pillows, which surprises him. Meanwhile, Sakaki and Ami, eavesdropping on the conversation, immediately deduce that something freaky must have happened between Sakurai and Hana last night, which makes them even more determined to get them together by all means. After the summer break, Hana, while at home, unexpectedly gets a call from Sakurai asking them to meet up. So the next morning, she heads to the location feeling optimistic, but when she meets up with Sakurai and asks why he wants them to meet up, Sakurai shyly points to a signboard with Cat Cafe written on it. He explains that he has always wanted to visit a cat cafe but just didn't have the balls to go alone and wants them to go in together. Disappointed to hear this, Hana kicks him numerous times on the leg before agreeing to enter the cafe with him. Inside, Sakurai sees different breeds of cats that he can pet, and he loses his cool. He immediately asks the lady in charge if he can pet the kittens, and the lady, terrified by his drug lord face, nervously tells him to go ahead but warns him to take it easy. As Sakurai approaches the cat, Hana reminds him to be gentle with it and to stroke its chin, which Sakurai does, and this single gesture is enough for the cat to fall in love with him. With the cat now sitting on his lap, Sakurai is over the moon to finally clear a bucket list, and Hana, seeing how excited he is shocked that he can be this free around animals but not humans. After quietly petting the cats for a while, Hana excitedly brings up her birthday, which is coming up in a few days, but Sakurai interrupts her, complaining that his legs are numb from keeping them in the same position for so long. The fact that Sakurai doesn't give a rat's dump about her birthday pisses Hana off, so to teach him a lesson, she takes the cat away from him and then starts poking his numb legs with her toenail, causing him to scream like a banshee. While this is going on, the chick in charge of the cats walks in and tells them to get a room already before kicking them out of the cafe. Before they part ways that day, Sakurai thanks Hana for coming through for him, and Hana, in response, reminds him of her upcoming birthday and then seriously mentions that she will be expecting a nice gift from him. The next day at the cafeteria, Sakurai tells Asai and Ami about Hana's upcoming birthday and how she mentioned that she is eagerly expecting a gift from him. When Asai asks if he has any gift ideas in mind, Sakurai immediately imagines giving Hana a bouquet of flowers, but he figures Hana will reject it because of how cheap it is. He also imagines gifting her a cheap ring and figures she would reject it as well, insisting that she wants diamonds from ice. At this point, Sakurai feels that anything he gives Hana as a birthday gift will never be appreciated, but Ame advises him to just follow his intuition and give her the first thing that comes to his mind. So, the next day, Sakurai walks around the street searching for a flower bouquet store, but just then he gets a call from Hana saying she desperately needs to be with him ASAP. Without wasting time, Sakurai heads to her location, and when he finally meets her and asks why she wants to see him so desperately, Hana points to a pub, explaining that she needs to get in but doesn't want to go alone. Sakurai stiffens when he hears this, but Hana explains that she wants him to give her a treat since it's her birthday. She says for her birthday gift she wants to empty his wallet, and Sakurai almost loses his mind, realizing that while he is cracking his brain for a birthday gift, all the dwarf wants is a bottle of beer. As they enter the pub, Hana admits she hasn't had a beer before in her life, but since it's her birthday, she is ready to go all out. After they clank their cups, Hana starts off by taking a sip of the beer, and when she likes it, she downs the whole cup. Seeing how much fun she is having, Sakurai decides to show he is a heavy baller, so he asks her to order whatever she likes. Hana thanks him for the generosity, and within a minute, she orders lots of food, and then lets him know that his wallet is as good as dead. Sakurai tries to stop her from emptying his entire savings, but Hana refuses and continues to order more food and drinks. When Sakurai advises her to take it easy on the beer, Hana claims she is fine and continues to drink anyway. Later that night, after drinking herself into a stupor, Hana is totally wasted, and as they walk home, she continues to throw herself shamelessly at Sakurai. After tempting him with her platters, Hana gets on her knees and says she wants a taste of his duck butter. However, Sakurai, trying not to take advantage of her situation, tells her to stand so he can take her home. Hana refuses, insisting that they go to his place so they can make good use of his sheet. Seeing that her silky fabric is exposed, Sakurai yells at her to get up, but still Hana refuses, and then tells him to check the time on his phone. When Sakurai does, he freaks out, realizing it's late, and Hana calls him a big dummy, reminding him that it's totally impossible for her to catch a train back to her crib. When Sakurai tries to call a cab instead, he checks his wallet for some cash but sees it's as empty as an old shell. Realizing there's nothing much he can do at this point, Sakurai sighs and agrees to take the intoxicated Smurf lady back to his crib. An hour later, when they arrive at his crib, Hana insists they play video games, but Sakurai refuses, saying all he wants is to sleep. When Sakurai notices that she is still drinking some of the leftovers, he yells at her to stop, but when she refuses, he decides to let her learn about the horrors of alcohol through a personal experience. He then closes his eyes and tries to sleep, but when Hana sees him sleeping, she figures he must be faking it, so she decides to get freaky with him. She moves closer and tries to lock lips, but this makes Sakurai's little John Cena turn to the rock, so he immediately jerks away from her before he spills some salty content. Seeing him panic, Hana teases him for being a virgin, but Sakurai, embarrassed, yells at her to shut up and sleep, which she does, since she is tired anyway. The next morning, Hana has an intense hangover and spends most of her time in the toilet throwing up, while Sakurai rubs salt to injury, reminding her that he warned her. A few minutes later, while Sakurai tidies up the room, Hana lies on the futon feeling horrible and swearing never to drink alcohol again in her life. After cleaning up the room, Sakurai then decides to get her some aspirin from the supermarket. But before he leaves, Hana thanks him for accompanying her to the pub and then admits that she had a really nice time, before foaming at the mouth. 2 days later, Hana publicly apologizes to Sakurai for drinking herself stupid and messing herself up in his apartment. Embarrassed, Sakurai tries to tell her not to sweat it, but Hana suddenly pulls out a white envelope and tells him to accept it. She explains that it contains money she received from her mom, but Sakurai notices that everyone thinks he is trying to take advantage of her, so he immediately rejects the money and begs her to stop apologizing. Later that day at the cafeteria, Ami and Asai, eager to hear some steamy gist, ask Sakurai how Hana's birthday turned out, but when they notice Sakurai isn't in the mood to talk, they give up. However, when Sakurai mentions that he and Hana went out drinking that day, the itchy-eared father and daughter ready themselves to hear the full gist. Sakurai narrates how Hana ended up drunk and had to spend the night at his crib, which catches Asai and Ami's interest as they fully expect to hear that they smashed. But then Sakurai starts to bawl his eyes out, which throws them off. Through the tears, Sakurai explains that ever since that night Hana has been apologizing to him every time they interact. However, while speaking, it suddenly dawns on Sakurai that Hana isn't the same playful girl who loves to tease him whenever she's around him. When he mentions this to Asai and Ame, Asai gives him an invitation he received for the upcoming fireworks festival, and Ami insists that Sakurai must invite Hana to the festival so they can talk things out. She also angrily warns him not to act like a scared wimp at the festival, but to go all out and compliment Hana, which she guarantees is the only surefire way to improve her mood. Sakurai agrees, so on the festival day, Hana shows up before him, dressed in a cute yukata gown that accentuates her bust. Later on, Sakurai shows up dressed like a local bum, and Hana thanks him for inviting her to the festival. Sakurai shyly tells her that it's fine, so together they walk around the festival, enjoying all the treats the event has to offer. However, Sakurai notices that Hana still isn't her usual cheerful self who loves roasting his life, and even though he often hates how vulgar she can be, he misses it and wonders what he can do to lift her spirits. Just then, Sakurai remembers Ame warning him to make sure he compliments Hana if he wants to improve her mood. So he tells Hana that she looks good in a yukata, which makes her get a little defensive before blushing. Seeing the effect his compliments have on her, Sakurai goes all in and starts complimenting everything Hana has on. When Hana can't control herself anymore, she loses her steez and returns to the former Hana who roasts people for a living. Lost in the moment, Sakurai continues to compliment her, but when he calls her cute, Hana suffers brain damage since she hasn't been called cute by any guy before. Flustered, she yells at him to stop the flattery, and as she starts swinging her hand to shut him up, she mistakenly smacks his head with her bag, shifting his brain and knocking him out cold. Years back, Hana was just a newbie swimmer who loved to swim and wanted to level up, so she tried to train as much as she could. But Sakurai, with his deadpan face, who was a professional at that time, had always warned her not to practice alone. Still, Hana was too determined for her own good and continued to train, and just watching Sakurai swim like a dolphin always fascinated her. Later that night, after swimming practice, Sakurai escorted her home, but along the way, they spotted an ongoing fireworks festival. Sakurai, trying to play the nice guy, immediately rushed to get them roasted corn, and his kind gesture melted Hana's heart. She apologizes for always disobeying his warnings not to swim alone, but Sakurai tells her it's fine, and together they watch the beautiful fireworks. Back in the present, Sakurai wakes to find two heavy mountains above him, which freaks him out, but then he realizes he is lying on Hana's lap, and the mountains are her heavy knockers. When he tries to stand up before something else stands, Hana advises him to rest a little, and then apologizes for whooping his brain. Sakurai tells her not to worry about it, and then sincerely opens up about how her presence in his life has turned him from an introverted loser into someone who is no longer afraid of going out and socializing. He explains that, until her appearance in his life, he had never done so much or visited so many places, but now he has been to more places than a baddie searching for a sugar daddy. He thanks her and then tells her not to be down even if things mess up, and this makes Hana smile. so she promises to keep him company so he doesn't return to being a loner. Just then, the fireworks start, and even though Sakurai can't see a thing from the bus-full angle he is in, he is happy to rest on a girl's lap for the first time. The following day, Hana invites Sakurai to her place for the first time, and as they head there, she notices that he seems unusually quiet. She figures the quiet virgin must be nervous about going to a girl's place for the first time, so she makes fun of him. However, to help ease his tension, she tells him she has cats at home so he can pet all he wants, and the mention of cats immediately changes Sakurai's expression. A little while later, they arrive at Hana's crib, but the instant her mom, Suki, sets eyes on Sakurai's Frankenstein face, she nearly pees herself out of pure horror. However, after she tries to maintain her composure, she introduces herself, and Sakurai also politely introduces himself. Seeing how respectful he is makes Suki relax a bit, so she welcomes in, where they talk a little about school and about the friendship he shares with her daughter. Just then, one of Hana's cats jumps onto Suki's legs to settle down, and Suki immediately notices Sakurai staring at her intensely. However, when she follows his gaze, she realizes that he is actually looking at something around her watermelons, which makes her uncomfortable. She misinterprets his expression and begins to wonder if Sakurai is a gigolo who wants to get down with both mother and daughter, not realizing that Sakurai is only interested in petting the cat on her legs. When Hana encourages Sakurai to go ahead and pet the cat, Suki misreads it as Hana giving Sakurai permission to cream all over her own mother, which unsettles her even more. After staying for a few minutes, Sakurai politely thanks Suki for welcoming him into her home, and then takes his leave. The following day, Suki visits the cafeteria to see Hana, but she nearly has a heart attack when she realizes that Sakurai also works there. Later on, after Suki introduces herself to Ami and Asai, she thanks them for allowing Hana to work at their cafe during the summer break. In response, Asai says there is no need to thank them since Hana is one of the hardest workers they have ever seen. Asai and Ami also glazes how Hana has brought a different kind of vibe to the cafeteria and how fantastic she is with the younger customers. After discussing Hana for a while, Ame shifts the conversation to Sakurai and starts talking about how he is considered a dreamboat by many of the cougar moms who visit the cafeteria. Upon hearing this, Suki gathers the courage to ask both Ami and Asai if Sakurai is the type of guy who pursues older women. Shocked by the question, Asai and Ame assure Suki that Sakurai is no cougar hunter, and just talking about this embarrasses Suki. A few hours later, Sakurai and Hana are in the staff room chatting about coffee beans when Suki suddenly arrives at the door to inform Hana that she will be heading home. However, she freezes the moment she overhears them talking about the coffee beans and how mature they are. Her dishwasher brain immediately suspects they must be gossiping about cougar moms, and when she overhears Sakurai mention that he likes them old and busty, she creams her plot cover, convinced he must be referring to her. Later that evening, after work, Hana unwinds by playing video games with Sakurai at his place. After she trashes him a couple of times, Hana teases him for being a pooch loser, which annoys him, so to get back at her, Sakurai tells her that she is too raz and that he prefers her mother's gentle behavior, which strikes a nerve. So, sometime later that night, at home, Hana spies on her mom to study her mannerisms so she can learn to act that way too. The next morning at the cafeteria, Hana switches her behavior from her usual energetic self to a calmer version, more like her mom, which surprises everyone. However, it quickly becomes a problem for Asai when most customers start demanding to have the old Hana back. Later on, Hana tries to have a conversation with Sakurai using this new version of herself, but Sakurai tells her to drop the Ariana Grande act, but Hana refuses, reminding him that he was the one who asked her to sound more like her mom. As she continues, Sakurai can't stand it anymore and begs her to stop, or he will jump into the ocean. Hana then tells him that she can stop using the voice, but first he has to apologize for insulting her. He agrees, and once he apologizes, Hana smirks and immediately returns to her usual loud self. She then scolds him for always spouting nonsense to annoy her, which sparks an argument between them. However, while they are busy roasting each other, a girl with blue hair suddenly pops up and yells at them to shut their stinking mouths. Before anyone can respond, the girl's mother immediately rushes over and apologizes for giving birth to such a nosy brat, but before leaving with her mom, the girl gives both Hana and Sakurai a lottery ticket so they can make peace. Later that evening, after work, as Hana and Sakurai head home, they spot a lottery ticket office and decide to test out the ticket the little girl gave them. After playing a game of chance, The operator congratulates and informs them that they've both won an all-expenses-paid trip to a foreign country for 2 nights. The following week, Sakurai and Hana arrive at the airport of this foreign country, excited to explore, but unbeknownst to them, 2 creeps are spying, watching their every move. As they arrive outside the airport, Hana asks where they should visit first, and Sakurai suggests they go to the sand dunes so he can try sandboarding, but Hana makes fun of him for wanting to do solo activities like the true loner he is. Suddenly, a car pulls up in front of them, and it turns out that the 2 creeps who had been spying on them were Ame and Sakaki all along. As they ride together, Ame explains that her dad gave her a summer break, and since Sakaki was also free and thinking of taking a trip, they decided to travel together. However, the truth is that both Sakaki and Ame traveled because they are nosy and can't resist meddling in Sakurai and Hana's relationship. A few minutes later, they arrive at the sand dunes, and after soaking in the beautiful sight, Hana challenges Sakurai to a race to the ocean, and Sakurai, never one to resist a challenge, agrees instantly. They decide that the loser will buy the winner a cone of ice cream, and once the race begins, Sakurai sprints down toward the river, but the thick sand of the dunes makes him run like an old man with huge sacks. Just then, Hana catches up to him on a snowboard, which shocks Sakurai, and even though he protests that it's unfair, she excitedly tells him it's a cold world, before leaving him behind in the sand. However, just as she is about to reach the ocean, her snowboard loses momentum. Desperately, Hana tries to run the rest of the way, but her short legs betray her, allowing Sakurai to catch up and eventually win the race. While they catch their breath, a useless couple in love approaches Sakurai and asks if he can take a picture of them together. Sakurai agrees, and after taking the photo, he asks Hana if they can return, but she claims she can't walk, so he is forced to drag her back, while Sakaki and Ame watch everything with amusement. Afterward, they all visit a tourist attraction, a circular building that used to be a school but is now a museum filled with figurines of 2D girls. Hana is awestruck by the figurines and asks Sakurai to buy some as souvenirs, but Sakurai refuses, explaining he is on a tight budget. A few minutes later, after leaving the museum, they visit an ancient shrine that is popular for healing all kinds of diseases and injuries. There, Hana and Sakurai decide to pray to the shrine gods, while Ame and Sakaki, knowing the consequences of doing so, keep it a secret. While offering their prayers, Sakurai asks for their travels to be peaceful, while Hana prays for Sakurai's loner disease to be cured. After praying, they also decide to try out fortune-telling, and when the results are revealed, Sakurai's prediction reads about him falling in love with a dwarf in the future, which shocks both him and Hana. When Sakurai looks around the shrine, he notices that it is mostly packed with couples in love, and that only love charms are being sold there. This makes him want to search Google for the real purpose of the shrine, but just then, Sakaki and Hana show up to reveal that they already know the truth behind it. Apparently, the shrine's reputation for healing skin diseases and injuries is just a cover, and its real purpose is matchmaking. Upon hearing this, Sakurai finally realizes why everywhere they had gone, they kept seeing couples showing affection. Sakaki then teases Sakurai and Hana for being lovers themselves, but Hana interrupts, telling him to shut the heck up and get himself a girl already instead of meddling in other people's affairs. Shortly afterward, they decide to take a mountain ride, but Sakurai and Hana hesitate when they remember that every fun activity seems to be designed for couples. However, after resisting for a while, they eventually end up taking the ride together, with Ame and Sakaki riding behind them. While on the ride, Sakurai hates the fact that he can't enjoy the vacation anymore without worrying that everyone will start seeing him and Hana as lovers. This frustrates him, and when he can't take it anymore, he tells Hana that since they came on the vacation to have fun, it would be best to forget about what anybody thinks and just enjoy themselves, and Hana agrees. Later that day, they lodge at an inn with a steam bath, so Sakaki and Ame fully expect something freaky to happen between Sakurai and Hana. While unpacking, Ame casually suggests that Hana and Sakurai share a room, but Hana shakes her head, prompting Ame to quickly claim she was only joking. Meanwhile, in another room, Sakaki and Sakurai have a bro talk, with Sakaki warning Sakurai not to miss the opportunity to crack Hana's buns. However, while this is going on, Hana suddenly bursts into the room to invite them to the steam bath, but when she sees them in the diddy position, she snaps a picture for evidence. Much later, while everyone is in the steamy sauna enjoying the hot steam, Hana starts sweating bucket and realizes she might suffer from dehydration. So she stands to take a towel from Sakurai but suddenly trips and falls on his family jewels. As she struggles to get up, her sweaty melons massages his rod a little, which causes a commotion, and just then, the staff, overhearing the noise, storms in to chase them out of the sauna. After leaving the sauna, they end up in the open bath, where Hana is still upset with Sakurai for neglecting her when she needed his towel. This leads to another argument between them, while Ami and Sakaki, watching from the side, are disappointed as they finally realize they've wasted their efforts trying to get the two idiots together. Later that evening, the group heads out for their final sightseeing stop, visiting a cultural heritage site filled with ancient yokai, and Hana seizes the opportunity to scare the heck out of Sakurai as payback for the sauna incident. Days later, everyone returns from the trip, and while relaxing in his apartment, Sakurai gets a call from Hana, informing him that she will be coming over later. Once the call ends, it dawns on Sakurai how frequently Hana has been visiting him. However, what worries him most is how she always leaves behind a piece of junk each time she visits. Suddenly, he hears an annoying knock on the door and figures it must be Hana. As he angrily opens the door, he sees her holding a jumbo beanbag, so he immediately refuses to let her keep it in his place. He also asks her to take away all the junk she has brought over, but Hana refuses, explaining that since he is a brokey with no couch in his apartment, she needs the beanbag to keep her cake cushioned. Realizing her excuse makes sense, Sakurai agrees to let her keep only the beanbag, but insists the rest of the junk must go. He pulls out a bag and tells her to put the things she doesn't need inside. However, after going through the items, Hana claims she doesn't need any of them, frustrating Sakurai, who yells at her to trash every single one. After tidying up the room, Hana opens the fridge to grab a bottle of water, but Sakurai spots a white bag inside and demands to know if it's another one of her trash. However, when he looks inside, he realizes it's groceries, and after Hana explains that she bought them so she can cook, Sakurai realizes he might have gone too far, calling all her things trash, so he apologizes for being a jerk. The following day at the cafeteria, Asai suggests Sakurai help out with the food prep, but when Hana immediately starts trash-talking his cooking skills, Sakurai agrees to do the cooking and then brags to be Gordon Ramsay's teacher. However, a few minutes later, when he presents his godforsaken food, Asai and Ami can see themselves enter nirvana from a single taste of it. Just then, Hana bursts out laughing like a clown at his disgusting food, which annoys Sakurai, so in frustration, he squeezes her cheek and warns her to quit laughing. Later that day, at Hana's place, Sakurai joins her and her mom, Suki, to bake so he can learn how to cook. While mixing the dough, Suki notices that Sakurai isn't as frightening as she initially assumed. She also realizes that he is well-mannered and easy to talk to, so she indirectly apologizes for misjudging him. Sakurai simply tells her it's fine. After they put the dough aside to rest, Suki leaves Sakurai and Hana to finish up while she attends to the laundry. Just then, two of Hana's cats stroll into the kitchen, and Hana encourages Sakurai to go ahead and pet them. However, while this is happening, Suki returns to check on them and overhears the conversation. Misinterpreting what she hears, she panics, thinking they are talking about petting her, and the idea that Hana might be trying to pimp out her own mother nearly makes Suki lose her mind. The next day, Sakurai and Hana decide to have fun at a rock climbing center. The nerdy baddie in charge approaches them, and after she explains the rules of the sport, Sakurai and Hana immediately start climbing. After a grueling 10 minutes, they manage to finish the first phase of the rock climbing session, but not without Hana complaining about her entire body nearly shutting down. Sakurai, on the other hand, is enjoying every bit of the hardcore sport, so seeing how much Hana is struggling to keep up, he decides to flex on her. This pisses Hana off, so she angrily brags that she can continue, and hearing her brag, the hot coordinator decides to crank up the difficulty to the next phase. This time, the wall is taller than the first one, and Sakurai, eager to show that he is a Sigma, goes first, and even though he faces a few obstacles on his way up, he manages to get halfway. Hana, determined to wipe off the smug smirk on his face, goes next, but a few climbs in, she freezes like a popsicle, unable to continue, and is forced to give up. Accepting defeat, she compliments Sakurai on his athleticism, and then admits to being a total waste when it comes to anything sport-related. Later that night, Sakurai visits the karaoke house ready to unleash his inner Chris Brown, but just as he is about to go full American Got Talent, Hana and Ame suddenly catch him and start mocking his frog voice. Pissed off, he warns them to stop invading people's privacy, but this only makes the girls laugh hard at his pathetic attempt. A few minutes later, Ami and Hana leave for the restroom together, and by the time they return, they are dressed in skimpy outfits and looking worse than OnlyFans models. Shocked, Sakurai demands to know what the heck is going on, and Ami explains that since the karaoke was loaning out cosplay outfits, they decided to try some on. Before Sakurai can wrap his head around this, the girls sandwich him and start rubbing their plots against his, causing him to lose control and cream his pants. When he demands to know why they are trying so hard to make him jizz, Ami claims it's because they feel sorry for ruining his karaoke session and want to make it up to him. However, when Ami starts to display too much thirst, Hana gets jealous and tells her to take it easy. After they are done with the first round of temptation, they change into another jizz-worthy outfit. However, before Sakurai loses it and starts poking them with his tool, he immediately assures them that he isn't mad anymore about them ruining his karaoke, which excites the girls. Later that night, after karaoke, Sakurai hears a knock on his door, and when he opens it, he sees Hana drenched in the rain. When he tries to rush inside to get a dry towel for her, Hana stops him and tells him that she no longer wants them to hang out anymore, shocking Sakurai. When Sakurai demands to know why, Hana explains that the reason is because she doesn't want to be a bother, but Sakurai tells her that she isn't a bother and then promises to do anything she wants. Upon hearing this, Hana smiles mischievously and then asks him to help with her summer break homework. However, seeing that she is trying to use him, Sakurai shuts the door in her face and refuses to help her. The next day at the cafeteria, Sakurai gists Asai about Hana and how she tried to play him like a fool the night before. However, while they talk, Sakurai notices Asai trying to pick up a heavy box on the floor, and when he volunteers to help, Asai shuts him down, saying he's got it, but as he lifts the box, he nearly breaks his spinal cord. Since Asai is unable to work, Sakurai offers to drive him to the chiropractor, and Asai suggests that they close the cafeteria for the day, but Ami refuses, assuring him that she can handle the shop in his absence. After Sakurai and Asai leave, Ame and Hana have a girl-to-girl talk over a cup of coffee about Sakurai and how much he has helped at the cafeteria. As the gist gets more interesting, Ami asks Hana how she and Sakurai were back in junior school, and Hana decides to narrate the whole story from the very beginning. It all started years back in school when one of Hana's thirsty friends suggested that they join the swimming club so they could see guys' long packs for free without paying subscriptions. Even though Hana didn't want to go, her friend dragged her along, and upon getting to the club, they met other swimmers who also wanted to join. However, during the orientation, Hana met Sakurai for the first time and was terrified to the bone by how ugly he looked. But after getting to know him, Hana admitted that she realized Sakurai is truly an earnest guy who loves to help and cheer for others. After listening to the story, Ame asks if Hana would like to date Sakurai, and the question catches Hana off guard. She immediately starts to blush red like a fresh wound and scrams out of the cafeteria like she has chronic diarrhea. The following day at work, Hana, eager to know what Sakurai is like when he is drunk, asks Ame, Asai, and Sakaki if they've ever witnessed Sakurai drunk before. Asai admits he has never seen him drunk, and Ami says she would like to see Sakurai stripped naked drunk. But Sakaki says he has and then goes into a full crash course about Sakurai and how he is when drunk. He explains that the reason people don't catch Sakurai drunk is that the dude knows his alcohol limits and sticks to them. When Hana asks for some tips on how to get Sakurai drunk, Sakaki asks if she plans on getting her friend drunk so she can bounce all she wants. But Hana denies it, claiming she just wants to catch him off guard and have some fun. Later that night, Hana drops by Sakurai's crib, fully prepared to get him wasted. According to Sakaki, Sakurai hardly drinks when he is out, but in the comfort of home, he will surely lower his guard. With this in mind, Hana offers to make dinner and ensures to make it as spicy as she can. While Sakurai is carried away enjoying the spicy food, Hana fills his cup with enough alcohol to destroy his kidneys. To keep him drinking, Hana suggests they watch a shark movie together, and Sakurai excitedly agrees. She remembers that Sakaki had told her Sakurai always wants to match or beat whoever he is with in drinking, so she grabs a can herself and pretends to drink. Eventually, late that night, Hana succeeds in getting Sakurai wasted, and she thrills at the victory. According to Sakaki, whenever Sakurai is dead drunk, he loses his common sense and can't lie. Acting on that, Hana decides to interrogate Sakurai a little to find his deepest secret. But when she asks the question directly, Sakurai simply replies with the word love, which immediately catches her off guard. That one-word response rattles her brain, so to calm her nerves, Hana gulps down a couple of beer cans and ends up wasted herself. A few hours later, Sakurai heads to Sakurai's crib to check on Hana and see how her plan is unfolding. However, upon entering the house, he finds both of them wasted, so he wakes Sakurai to get to the futon to sleep, and also wakes Hana to sleep in a different futon. By the time they wake the next morning, Sakurai and Hana find themselves lying next to each other, which leaves them shocked and utterly confused. Later that morning at the cafeteria, Sakurai and Hana share their worry with Asai and Ami about how they have amnesia and can't remember anything from the night before. When Ami suggests that they break it down and try remembering things in order, Hana says she remembers making dinner, while Sakurai says he remembers watching movies. After that, they realize they can only remember waking up that morning in the same futon. Hearing that they woke up in the same futon sparks Ami and Asai's interest, and they demand to know if they smashed. When Sakurai denies it, saying he didn't see any cream on the bed, Ame yells at him for fumbling the easiest bag in the history of mankind. After finally concluding that they can't remember a thing, Sakurai shifts the conversation to school, which will be resuming soon, and Hana is shocked to hear that summer break is almost over, along with her frequent visits to Sakurai's place. The following week, at Hana's place, she reluctantly prepares for school, even though she wishes summer break could just continue. Later that morning, she arrives at school looking completely drained of all life energy, but then she spots Sakurai walking in front of her. As she rushes to catch up with him, Hana complains about the end of summer break and how they didn't get to hang out enough. She says she wishes they could hang out more, but Sakurai tells her not to be stupid and assures her that they don't have to hang out only during the summer. They can hang out whenever. When he promises they will always be together, Hana is shocked, and for a moment, she is speechless and blushing hard. When Sakurai notices the blush on her face, he immediately tries to take his words back, but Hana teases him for being so thirsty and wanting to hang out with her so badly. Comment sweet cheeks if you watch this recap to the end. If you enjoy anime recaps like this, subscribe to the channel and watch this next video.